Supporting Gay and Lesbian Families in the Early Childhood Classroom from the book Equity and Diversity. I'm going to start us out by reading the words that was presented in our chapter, and I believe it's just a really good way of thinking about the families we serve and maybe just a glimpse of what they might be feeling like. So I just want you to listen to this. When those who have the power to name and to socially construct reality chose not to see you or hear you. When someone with authority of a teacher, say, describes the world and you are not in it. There is a moment of psychic disequilibrium, as if you looked in a mirror and saw nothing. It takes some strength of soul, and not just individual strength, but collective understanding, to resist this void, this non-being, into which you are thrust, and to stand up, demanding to be seen and heard. And that is from Adrienne Rich, Blood, Bread, and Poetry. And I believe that this is an excellent way to get us started. And often the families that we are supporting, they are all diverse and unique, but supporting gay and lesbian families really does take an additional thought or a time to dig in and to really think about what they must be going through. As early childhood educators today work with increasingly diverse populations of children and families. This diversity can include from non-traditional families, such as families headed by like a single adult, divorced parents, families headed by a relative or other than the parent, families headed by gay and lesbian parents. I think that if we were to take a moment right now, you could probably list 20 different kinds of family dimensions or demographics. And when you think about that, you're thinking about those families that we're serving and how each one might fit that description of what I've already read in the beginning, that they're not being seen or heard. But gay and lesbian families in particular have, I think, a daunting task or a daunting challenge, if you will, to be seen and heard. And the article throughout this book provides strategies for supporting children and parents in gay and lesbian households, especially if you have not, if you're not too familiar or you haven't had any families in your school that are gay or lesbian. I think that this book will really give you a lot of great tools to use. And of course, remember, they're always the experts. And I think most families are willing to answer your questions if you're asked in a thoughtful, kind way. So supporting gay and lesbian families, children's success within their communities is largely determined by socialization. Families transfer their values and beliefs to children through modeling and language, which shapes children's views of themselves and the world around them. In some cases, it isolates individuals and groups whose cultures differ from the perceived social norm, placing young children at a risk for long-term emotional and behavioral challenges. Families which contribute the most basic component of young children's self-identities are a central part of the early childhood curriculum. Therefore, negative views of same-sex partnered families in early childhood settings can be damaging to young children and parents who may feel stigmatized or uncomfortable about participating in practices not supportive of their family identity. I think this is no different than some of the other families that we've addressed throughout this semester, in that they need to see themselves when they walk into the school. They need to feel like they belong. And it can't be fake or artificial, but truly that they belong there, that you want them there. And it's important to make sure that you have materials, books, puzzles, images, pictures of families that represent them. Given that positive relationships between families and schools support children's social and academic development and their later success in life, I want you to think about how can early childhood professionals support these children and their families. How are you going to do that? Strategies for providing support. The book talks that there is the estimate that 200,000 children being raised by same-sex couples in the U.S., and that early childhood teachers need to welcome and affirm these families. Some strategies presented revolve around three main areas, which is communication, heightening bias awareness, and creating an inclusive environment. And I don't think those are too far off from what we've continued to say throughout this course. Communication is key. It is key with not only the children you serve, the families you serve, your team, administration, the community. So this is no different. And heighten bias awareness is we've been asking you to check in on your biases throughout this semester, and here's another time to do that. What are your feelings, and how are you going to work with your feelings? And then creating that inclusive environment. We need to make sure that we are doing that for all. So let's dig into communication a little bit more. It is an open dialogue with families. And communication that fails to recognize gay and lesbian families can lead them to feel unwelcome and unappreciative. Remember, we're trying to build those relationships with families. We're trying to connect with them. We don't want to break them down. And we want to avoid gender stereotypes to manage relationships. So if issues arise, if a teacher rely on gender stereotypes to manage relationships, this is going to be a difficult task for them. Remember, gender neutral is one way of working with this. One effective method to addressing communication challenges to create an inclusive safe space for families is skilled dialogue. Really think about what you're saying, how you're saying it. Often throughout these presentations, I think you might have felt that I've paused a little bit because I need to really think about what I'm saying, and it's important to do that. But an approach that supports collaborative communication, understanding, and connecting diverse perspectives. We want to and need to hear from them. The book goes on to talk about having reflect on the beliefs, perceptions, and thoughts that shape their individual perspectives, remain open to collaborating, acknowledge differences between assumptions about the families, remain open to and respectful of different perspectives, and work to create a third inclusive solution to address the classrooms as well as any family needs. So that just stems around a story that comes from the book, but these are sort of your framework, really, for communication, and to maybe have that somewhere posted so that you can be constantly reminded of what you need to do, what your role is. And communication findings. Work together to find that solution that will shape future interactions and support the development and sense of identity. You want to make sure that that solution is going to foster growth in that identity and not tear it down. Even with our best intentions, sometimes we do things, and if we do something wrong, just identify it and work towards changing that so that mistake doesn't happen again. We want to build those sense of identities up. Activities that are inclusive for all families, not just those whose structures we're most familiar with. So this is one that I need to share a story, is that a lot of times schools will have muffins with moms or donuts with dads or something along that line. Although those are not intended to be hurtful, sometimes it can be very hurtful to families. And I also think about paperwork. Paperwork will often have mother, father listed on paperwork. I see more change happening in around that area and arena, but it hasn't come all the way around yet. Instead of saying guardian 1, guardian 2, or responsible adult, responsible adult 2. I'm not sure, what the wording will be that would be most inclusive of all that we serve. But we need to make sure that everything's inclusive. That is very difficult. I've had families before that were where they've had to actually cross it out, and it was very sad for me that they were crossing out where it said father and they put mother. So they had a mother and mother, and that just broke my heart that our format, would actually continue to stay that. Spending time exploring your own biases and impact they have on children and families. Again, I'm just asking you to, hold that mirror up to yourself and say, what do I have? Be honest with yourself. It's okay. We all have biases, but we have to work through them so that we can serve the families and make sure that we are not accidentally or unintentionally saying things or doing things that might offend them. Examine your own background and reflect on past interactions with non-traditional families. I think that's really important because we often are, as we are raised with whatever family dynamic you have in the community that you have, and that is your world. And sometimes when you do step out of that world and you step into a different community and you start going with exploring with your eyes wide open, you're really going to learn that every family is truly unique, no matter if they both have two moms and or two dads. They're unique from the next family that we serve that has two moms or two dads, right? And so we can't also put everybody into a box of the sameness. Heightening awarenesses of biases. So here's your time to reflect. This week, you'll be asked to complete an assignment that you might feel uncomfortable with. Make sure you give yourself enough time to truly reflect on the questions and be honest with yourself. You will be completing the questions at the top of the page of 102 under where it says Heighten Awarenesses of Biases. By answering these questions, you might realize something new about yourself that you have unintentionally conveyed and unwillingness to include all families. And you might I just think learning something new about yourself is pretty amazing. So I want you to make sure you have time and you need to reflect on that. Creating an inclusive environment. Things to remember when creating an inclusive environment. Use inclusive language in all written and oral communications. Communication to children's families rather than children's parents. We have, at my school, family conferences. We don't call them parent-teacher conferences anymore. We call them family conferences. Use the term such as partner instead of husband or wife when communicating with others. Modeling respect for gay and lesbian families in all interactions and communications by listening attentively and addressing their needs. Addressing children's comments and questions about different family structures with age-appropriate answers that focus on the love that brings families together. Celebrating Family Day instead of Mother's or Father's Day. Remember, I had mentioned that a little bit earlier. Adapting finger plays and songs to include gay and lesbian families. Changing the lyrics from Thomas More's Family Jog to song from Look at My Father Jog to Look at My Father's Jog. So just looking at the songs we sing and the books we read, and we need to represent all our families. So it doesn't mean you throw all things out, but try to make it inclusive for all children so that as they're participating in your classroom, they feel like this is something I can sing. This is something I can do. This is a puppet story that I can get involved in. Provide classroom materials with respect to the family's uniqueness. Books, posters, I talked about that to begin with. We want to make sure that we have books that support families that have a mother and dad. We want to have books that support gay and lesbian families. We want to have books that support grandma raising children or aunt raising children or uncle raising children. We want to make sure that our room really does truly allow that feel of inclusiveness in our schools. So wrapping this up, it is important that teachers examine early childhood classroom practices to ensure we create environments that are welcoming to all types of families. So I ask you as a practitioner or a future practitioner to really look around your classroom. What does your classroom say? If you don't like what it's saying, then change it. A lot of changes do not cost a lot of money, nor do they take a lot of time. It's the little gestures and the little things that we do that make families feel like they are family to this school, to your classroom. There are many strategies that provide support, such as communication, understanding biases, and creating an inclusive environment. All will take the necessary work to make sure all children and families are welcome and appreciative. You want to make sure that's most important. Put yourself in a place where you've had to walk into an unfamiliar location, and what maybe made you feel welcome or what didn't make you feel welcome. What do you wish would have been different? Our families are no different coming into our classroom. We want them to feel like this is their second home, that they truly can feel comfortable. They can have the relationships that they want to have with us, and the children feel like they belong and want to have those relationships with us as teachers as well.